Hello and a very warm welcome to Daily Dispatch, a show that gives you all the latest news and updates from the digital ecosystem. I'm Priya Sheth. Thank you so much for logging in. Time now to get you all the top news stories that we've been tracking for you this evening. Well, first up, Paytm will be applying for a new umbrella entity in the consortium with players including ride-hailing platform Ola. This is part of its effort to develop more innovative and inclusive digital payment solutions for the Indian population. Well, moving on to the second headline of the day, B2B marketplace for the seafood supply chain, Capital Fresh has raised about $3 million in seed capital led by Matrix Partners India and Ankur Capital India. With this infusion, Capital Fresh will continue to expand operations and invest deeper in its sourcing and distribution capabilities, building a world-class team and for investing in technology. While Leapfrog Investments, a global impact investment group with a presence in India, has received a commitment of $500 million from Singapore government-owned investment company Temasek. Temasek will anchor Leapfrog's future funds and also take minority stake to provide growth capital for the latter's funding across Asia as well as Africa. Well, online insurance platform Turtlemint has raised a fresh round of growth financing from Singapore-based Strongel Ventures. Now, this brings its Series D fund raise to about $46 million. The funds will be used to supercharge insurance distribution as well as innovation in India. Well, moving on to the final headline of the day, CDC Group has invested about $20 million in Ecom Express. The firm will utilize the equity for strategic initiatives including growth-driven capital expenditure, working capital requirements, and new business initiatives. Now, this will be CDC Group's second round of investment in Ecom Express after it had made its initial investment in December 2019.
Well, moving on to our second segment, I have with me someone who has been in news of late. I have with me Mr. Ashish Papadia from Bloom Ventures. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to talk to you about the fund close that you all have announced recently. What does it mean for Bloom Ventures, or how difficult or easy was it to close this round of funding?
So the fund that you're referring to, Priya, is Bloom Ventures Fund 1X. This is a secondary fund of 350 crores that we raised. And this was raised primarily from high quality and renowned family offices and ultra HNIs in India. And the goal of the fund was to invest into our Fund 1 companies, buy out our Fund 1 positions from Fund 1 investors and continue our journey with them. And the intent behind doing something like this was twofold. We felt very strongly about the companies that are there in Fund 1. And they have been on a good run over the last few years. And it just felt like a decade for a fund in that vintage was not enough. Everything in that era from 2011 to 2015, when most of the investments of Fund 1 were made, were at a very different scale and a very different pace of movement, which means that there is going to be that added tenure required at the end of the fund. So we were trying to just make sure that we can continue our journeys with these companies, given there is a phenomenal journey left. We believe that a few of these companies can go all the way up to an IPO and post a unicorn status too. And at the same time, we didn't want to be greedy and just try and hold on to these companies, because it would be unfair to our Fund 1 investors who had been very silent, strong backers all through the decade of our journey at Bloom. So we wanted to give them a genuine exit, and we did that by buying out these companies and after creating a new fund, which is Fund 1X that you were referring to. And by way of that, the Fund 1X will have new LPs, and it also provides an option for all of the existing LPs to come back. So that way, anybody who feels strongly about it and would like to continue can also continue the journey, and those who don't can take the capital back along with all the returns, and they can continue to cheer from the sidelines. The Fund 1 continues to be managed. There are another half a dozen companies which are there, which are as good. Due to the size constraints, we could not fit all of it. But we are in the midst of conversations with a couple of offshore investors who are looking at the rest of the companies, because most of the residual positions are overseas domiciled businesses. and there's only so much you can do using an Indian fund because of constraints from SEBI and all that. So that we will solve it with an overseas corporate.
Right, when you talk about this innovative kind of fund structure that you all have come up with, can we expect more such funds to, spring up in the market, considering that, there have been really good companies over the last couple of years and performance has been really good over the last few months?
I do believe, Priya, that there would be an active secondary market that will be there in India. This is something which is a trend in overseas markets. Historically, what used to happen is once the Indian investors have run its course of 8, 9, 10 years, an overseas investor fund like this using a secondary label would come up and buy out these positions at a discount. Sometimes the discounts will be very deep as well, depending on how desperate the fund manager is to be able to sell for his track record or for delivering exit back to his LPs, etc. We definitely have reached a point where we saw that the appetite is very high. Indian families have started to appreciate the potential that technology stocks has to offer. There's also a cycle getting completed. And what I mean by cycle getting completed, Priya, is that we are going to see half a dozen plus IPOs coming up from tech companies over the next year or two. And this would mean that people would have much deeper confidence that over a period of next 3, 4, 5 years, there'll be many more stories playing out. So it will attract a fair bit of interest and liquidity. And I do believe that this will be a starting point for a few of our peers to do something similar. Something similar did happen in 2017-18 as well. We launched the Opportunity Fund for going deeper into our winners of Fund 1 and Fund 2. And post that, there were a few peers who did the same thing. So it's all good. The market is expanding and Indian families have got an option to invest into options which are beyond the public limited companies and mutual funds, assets which have high potential and which can deliver upwards of 20% IRR is now finally available to Indian families as well, which was hitherto not the case.
Right, you spoke about a lot of tech companies going public, and that perhaps is the beginning of a new cycle out there in the market. But within your portfolio, also, I understand there are many companies that are likely to go public. So, how many companies do you expect would go the way of an IPO?
So today, when I look at this fund 1x, we have transferred 6 positions. This includes Grey Orange, Turtlemint, Purple, Exotel, WebEngage, and ID5. And while all of them are still our stories in the making, I'm just taking a conservative probability and I am trying to say that we're estimating that at least 3 of these will go down the path of being public. And when we are saying this number, we know what 3 we are talking about here. And it is not just a exercise. And from the residual portfolio, also, there are few good companies which have already been on a good run, the likes of Unacademy, Spinny, Locus. Now, these companies also will shape up over the next few years. I'm not inclined to say that there is a plan immediately to do something like this. But yeah, these companies have the fundamental business model going for them and unit economics matrices which are trending well for these to go down the path of larger sustainable businesses. And from there on begins the thought process and vision for the IPO. The step to the IPO would be to first create business models that are sustainable and scalable, where we can believe that the founding team and people around visualize this business to be a decade plus journey. And there are enough names in the portfolio of Fund 1 and Fund 2 which are on track.
I wanted to understand from your perspective, when you talk about foreign investors and the perception of the Indian market, do you think that has significantly changed over the last couple of months? We've been seeing great kind of fundraising activity, lots of new funds being launched into the market. What's your perspective of the foreign investor in the market out there?
So the foreign investors, I think it's fair to say that we've had enough support and conviction over the last decade. When you see the capital that has flown into India, Priya, you would realize that 80+% of the capital has been through overseas sources. And the Indian investors have probably missed it out. And I won't say as in when I say Mr. Doubt, there was definitely a lag in which Indian investors joined the party. So one can be fair to say that one is fair when we say that the foreign investors have supported. Now that we have reached a decade and a half of cycle of private investments, a decade of VC investments, foreign investors are expecting the cycle to play out with returns, listing, exits, cashbacks, etc. So that is where it is just waiting to happen. The moment we see some of these IPOs going through and hold on to their prices and deliver wealth for the shareholders, you will see a very significant interest coming into India, which has been waiting in the wings. Over and above what we have seen as inflows into India in the recent past, there is still capital waiting in the wings where people are asking two, three questions. They are saying, are the valuations sustainable? Are the new about companies going right going to really fructify? Are the businesses going to be scalable and sound enough with the depth in the market there? And a lot of these questions do get answered when we are going to hold on to our large companies, when they are going to go down the path of public. After getting listed, they are able to show appreciation and show strong matrices. So I think we are in that zone where over the next 1 to 2 years, my belief is that we will have significant surge of capital. I do believe that valuations is a perception. One can definitely argue that it is a little bit on the higher side at different stages. So when we talk about very early stages, there is a semi-permanent hike in the valuation. We consistently see businesses getting funded which are on the higher side. And that is a function of how strong the story is, what is the caliber of the founder coming in. So one can argue, and I would say that there is a definitely a little bit of a valuation spike at the early stage. But as things start growing up, there is a bit of rationality and in terms of valuations. And post that, when it reaches that unicorn plus plus status, it's a function of demand and supply, fortunately or unfortunately. There are only so many companies that we have in that range of about 30, 40, where large funds can deploy capital. And so there does end up being a situation where large number of people are gunning for those positions. And one tends to see a temporary surge in valuations, which eventually the founders and the management team will hopefully flow through that. So a lot of valuations on the private side at growth stage and late growth stage are combination of leap of faith and how the past growth rates have been. And when investors are saying that something like this will sustain for the next 2, 3 years, and if we can flow into it and still deliver a 30% year-on-year growth rate post the unicorn level, I think it should hold up well.
I had a final question as far as the B2B space is concerned. B2B startup space, specifically on the service side, has been seeing a lot of traction over the last couple of months. We've been seeing a lot of investments specifically come into this space. Do you think that the B2B space is perhaps going to be the winner going forward, specifically in 2021?
I feel so. And there are 2, 3 reasons for it. I have always believed that India will be a country and a market where a mid bulge will form. Initially, that range was businesses which are in the revenue run rate of between 30 to $75 million. As time progresses, this number also keeps moving up. So we would have a good number of companies on the B2B side which are solving a fundamental problem, which will be building solutions for the globe. And a few of them will go and build mega companies. But a large number of companies on the B2B side will continue to do well, even though they might not become like unicorn plus plus or decacons. Because there are enough problems on the B2B side which remain unsolved in financial services, in agri, in other areas like logistics, health, where you might not be able to instantly deliver a unicorn plus or a $5 billion outcome. But at the same time, these will float in the range of 500, $700 million of enterprise values, and they will continue to do well. B2B opportunities offer a unique position where you are able to create businesses with strong profitability, a predictive revenue stream, and can expand in a step function. And that is something which will definitely be a feature of the markets in India.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. And it's been really insightful, this conversation. Thank you very much for being a part of Daily Dispatch.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, everyone at your side.
Well, time now to say goodbye. Many thanks for joining us on this edition of the Daily Dispatch. I'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Goodbye and take care.